Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Whilst it's said electronic voting machines cannot be hacked, can they be manipulated? And if the answer is yes, what can we do about it? Those are two key critical questions I should put today to one of our better-known EVM experts, a former CEO of Tulip Software and a former consultant of the Obama administration in America, Madhav Deshpande. Mr. Deshpande, let me start by asking you for a clarification. Am I right in saying that electronic voting machines cannot be hacked because they are not connected to Wi-Fi, to Bluetooth, or the internet, but they can be manipulated? Am I right when I say that?
Yes, and before I start answering that, thank you very much for having me with you, Mr. Thapar. It's a privilege and it's a joy to be with you. Yes, to answer your question, uh, Indian EVMs are different than what typically global EVMs are typically designed with, and the primary reason is that Indian EVMs are not connected. The reason why global EVMs have been connected is because they have clubbed the voter identification with its biometric as a part of their EVM. So they have necessarily to connect it through internet to verify the biometrics. We haven't done that. So our EVMs are unconnected either by Wi-Fi or by Bluetooth or even to the internet. That makes them unhackable. Hacking basically means taking control from remote and making the machine that you're now controlling behave in a way that is not expected it to behave. That is what hacking is. And EVM, because Indian EVMs are not connected, you cannot control them from remote. But because they have keys and because they are internally connected to each other, you can manipulate the way keys are pressed. This is a theoretical possibility, and it can be practically demonstrated on a similar machine, not necessarily probably EVM because we don't get to do it. But yes, it can be done. I would also like to say a couple of more things here. Typically, people talk of EVM as if it is a monolithic single unit. It is not. Even when Election Commission responds to questions, it responds as if EVM is a single monolithic unit. It has three components. It has a ballot unit on which the voter presses a button. It has a control unit which both controls the ballot unit and receives the vote. And it has a voter verifiable paper trail printer, which is popularly called as VVPAT, which prints the corresponding symbol corresponding to the button that the voter has pressed. So these are three units which are independent and they are connected to each other. So we have to be mindful that each of these can behave differently as well on their own.
Let me, for the audience, underline the most important thing you said, which is that EVMs cannot be hacked. This is because they're not connected to the Wi-Fi, to the Bluetooth, or to the internet. But, and this is equally important, they can be manipulated. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, how that manipulation can theoretically be done. It arises from the fact, as you said in a recent podcast for Indie Chat, that these three machines that comprise the EVM have what you call design problems. You said they are under-designed, and this leads to three specific problems, and I'll come to those three problems in a moment's time. But can I start by asking you, what do you mean that the system is under-designed? What do you mean by under-designed?
Great, absolutely great question. See, under-designed is a term that is context and time specific. Something that is well designed in a particular context and at a particular time can start becoming under designed as progresses are made. This system was designed in 1977 when we didn't have uh, internet. We hardly had any Wi-Fi. We barely had even Ethernet connectivity. So, and of course, the computer science was also in its very nascent stage. Electronics was also far primitive than what we have it today. Given that situation, what was designed then was in keeping with the manual processes and manual systems that were in place. So similar constraints were put on this system, but this is an electronic system. As the time passed, electronics, computer science, and internet and connectivity made progresses in leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, that didn't happen with EVM. So they started becoming under-designed. By that I mean, because there were more features, there were more possibilities available that were not incorporated, it opened up gaps and holes through which tampering could be done. See, I'll give you a parallel example. In 1977, this is my favorite example. In 1977, India used Fiat cars. We moved on. We have moved on. Nobody uses a Fiat car. Very rarely, maybe you'll find one in a million. People are using other cars. Why? Because other cars have more features. They have more security, more safety, and so on and so forth. Similarly, these units needed to have been upgraded to include things that were now available, like, as I said, internet, connectivity, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Does that make it clear?
It
The
does indeed.
under-designed concept?
Basically, what you're saying is that the system has advanced a lot since the 70s when the EVMs were first created. The system now permits more features to be added. Those features have not been added, as a result of which there are gaps and holes. And as a result of those gaps and holes, tampering is possible. Let's then come to the three problems that you've identified, and let's take them up one by one. The first problem is to do with the way the ballot unit is linked to the control unit via the VVPAT machine and not linked directly. Can you explain why is this a problem?
There are two problems here. One problem has to do with the constitutionality of the whole thing. And the other problem is to do with the technicality of the whole thing. So let me try to speak to both. As far as the constitutionality is concerned, when I have a duty to vote and I have a right to vote, it means I have a right to vote directly, which means I put my own ballot in the ballot paper box in old times, or in today's times, my vote should go directly from the ballot unit to the counting unit where it is going to be stored. Anybody or anything coming in between is a violation of this right that I have. It is like me stamping my ballot paper and giving it to you or a friend saying that please put it in the ballot box. The moment I give it to you or anybody else, I have lost control over my voting. Because I would not.
Can I just clarify for the audience? What you're saying is because the VVPAT machine exists between the ballot unit and the control unit, when you vote, your vote is not going directly to the control unit. It is going via the VVPAT machine. It ought to go directly, but it is going through an intermediary, the intermediary being the VVPAT machine. Have I understood that correctly?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example on the technicality of it now. When I press, let's say I am a voter, I walk in and I press a yellow vote on my ballot unit. The yellow vote, which is an electronic vote now, transmits itself or is transferred from the ballot unit to the VVPAT. VVPAT recognizes this yellow vote as a yellow vote, prints a yellow receipt, which I see and say, this is correct, this is what I voted for. Thereafter, VVPAT can transfer a gray vote instead of my yellow vote to the control unit, and I will have never seen that gray vote. So I do not know what VVPAT further transfers to the control unit. That is a fundamental problem. Now we have to ask ourselves.
Can I again interrupt?
Sure.
Because I think it's important the audience should understand this. We can verify what we voted because the VVPAT will produce the receipt of what we voted, and we can see that it's exactly the same. To use your example, you send a yellow vote, you can see the yellow receipt, so you know that the VVPAT has received your yellow vote. What you don't know is what the VVPAT sends on in turn to the control unit. And because you don't know it, that is where potentially some mischief could happen.
Correct. And there is ample room to do that. Again, one reason is VVPAT is actually the weakest link of the whole arrangement, because ballot unit and control unit are location agnostic. They have been randomized 3 times before they come to the voting, the place where the voter interacts with them. So they don't really care. They don't even know which location they are in terms of their programming and in terms of the way they process data. Whereas VVPAT is not so. It is location specific. Just about 10 to 15 days before the actual voting takes place, candidate specific data, the list of the candidates, is uploaded on the in the VVPAT using what the Election Commission calls as the symbol upload module. So the process as it goes is people authorized by the Election Commission connect to the Election Commission's website, download the specific symbol upload module for the constituency in which they are going to operate. Take this laptop, connect it to the VVPAT, and then upload this data using the symbol upload module in that VVPAT machine.
Quite
Now,
right.
this is where a lot of things can go wrong.
To use the language you used in your Indie Chat podcast, as you said there, the control unit and the ballot unit are randomized. They will work anywhere and everywhere in any constituency, whether it is Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh. But the VVPAT is customized specifically for each constituency. As a result, when the vote travels from the ballot unit to the control unit via the VVPAT machine, there is the possibility of tampering with it, because in between two randomized units is a customized unit for that constituency specifically. Have I understood that correctly?
Absolutely. And it's not just that unit per se would not be a problem if that unit did not have a program. It has a program written specifically to recognize what vote has come in, map it onto the candidate list so that it can print appropriate symbol on the paper. So there is a program inside which reads the data fed to it through the symbol upload module and also the data that has come in from the ballot unit. Now, there are multiple
But this is again very important. The VVPAT is actually a unit with a program, and the program is designed to read the vote you send with the person that the vote is for, his party or her party, his face or her face. That programming can be tampered with. Am I right in suggesting that?
So programming doesn't have to be tampered with. The program behavior can be altered with additional data. So there are multiple ways. I'll give you a simple example. Imagine this data that is uploaded in the VVPAT in the form of a spreadsheet or Excel, as we popularly call it. Let's say it has 3 columns: the number of the candidate, the name of the candidate, and the symbol of the candidate. Or maybe if you like the party name, 4 columns, including the party name. Let us say that in front of a candidate that one wants to favor, as a fifth column, I just put an asterisk so that the program is already written to recognize the asterisk and put the third or fifth or whatever vote in favor of that candidate, irrespective of what vote has been received.
This is again very important. If you add, just to take your example further, if you add that asterisk to the programming, it can ensure that the third vote or the fifth vote or every seventh vote, every third vote, every fifth vote or every seventh vote goes to a preferred candidate rather than the candidate you voted for. So something as simple as an asterisk added to the program can
Not the
ensure
program, not the program, the data.
to the data.
Added. Yeah.
So something as simple as an asterisk added to the data can ensure that every third, fifth, seventh, 11th, or 12th, whatever you want, vote goes to the preferred candidate rather than the candidate you vote for. That is how the manipulation will happen.
Yes, it can easily take place that way. And in this, the beauty, if you will, of this is that even the person who uploads this data from the symbol upload unit into the VVPAT would be completely unaware of anything because he doesn't see the data. He or she doesn't see the data. They just execute that program and the data gets uploaded.
And this is a classic case of manipulation, not of hacking.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it happens at the VVPAT stage.
Yes.
But if the control unit and the voting unit, the ballot unit, were linked directly rather than through the VVPAT, this could be eliminated.
Exactly. So the preferred topology or the arrangement of these three units should be the ballot unit is at the center and it communicates simultaneously the same signal to the VVPAT and the control unit. So when I, as a voter, when I press a button of, let's say, yellow vote or a blue vote, that blue vote simultaneously goes to the control unit and to the VVPAT. VVPAT will then print, it will process as it is doing now. It will process the vote, print a blue receipt, I'll be happy. And because the VVPAT is no more connected to the CU or the control unit in any way, it will, my vote will be transparently given or transferred to the control unit.
In other words, this is a very easy situation to remedy. All you
Absolutely.
need to do is to put the ballot unit at the center rather than the VVPAT. And the ballot unit simultaneously, as you said, will give its signal both to the VVPAT, which will produce the receipt as proof of the way I voted, and to the control unit, which will record the vote. It will be the same signal that will go to both simultaneously. And therefore, the situation can easily be remedied by putting the ballot unit at the center rather than the VVPAT at the center.
You're absolutely right. You got it.
I'll just underline that. We've identified a very critical way in which manipulation can happen. Depending upon the data that's fed into the program, you can ensure that every third, fifth, seventh, 12th, or whatever vote you want is given to a preferred candidate. But we've also identified how easily this can be remedied by putting the ballot unit at the center rather than the VVPAT. In other words, there is a problem, but the solution is straightforward and easy.
You said it right. Absolutely. Straightforward and easy.
Let's then come, Mr. Deshpande, to the second problem that arises out of what you call the under-designing of the system. This is that the ballot unit and the control unit are not paired. They only have stickers with numbers identifying them, and those stickers can be easily changed or removed. You believe they should be paired, and they should be paired with a serial cable. Why is a serial cable necessary for the pairing?
So before I answer your why serial cable is necessary, I'll just give an example of pairing so everybody understands what pairing is. Pairing is when we shake hands and identify each other. In modern, again, I'll take an example of a car because that's probably the most easily relatable example. In modern cars, we put the key of the car in our pocket and walk up to the car, touch the handle or press a knob on the handle, and the car gets unlocked. That happens because the car identifies the key and the key identifies the car. This pairing has happened in the case of the car and key in the factory. The advantage of that is obviously if I carry my key and walk up to your car, I will not be able to unlock your car and vice versa. So that pairing ensures that only devices that recognize each other can talk to each other. So it is used to recognize the device. The reason why we should use a serial pair and pair the ballot unit and the control unit is that today, theoretically, any control unit can talk to any ballot unit, which is a good thing. But any control unit can replace a given control unit later on before the counting also remains a fact, because the ballot unit is never in a part of the process the moment voting is over, which is a sad situation to be in because that is the source of data. Now, if you connect the ballot unit and the control unit to each other without a wireless protocol, any kind of wireless protocol, then you have to use a wire. And the easiest and the most ubiquitous wired protocol is the serial cable. And both BU and CU already have a serial port.
This
So
is
you
again
don't have to
very
redesign
important.
anything.
This is again very important, and let me once again repeat it so the audience fully understand it. The problem arises from the fact that if they are not paired, any control unit can work with any ballot unit. And the danger is once the voting has been recorded, you can change the control unit, right? But
Yes,
if you
absolutely.
pair them with a serial cable, that possibility of changing the control unit after the voting is over is eliminated. And therefore, the danger of manipulation that would arise because you can change the control unit is also eliminated. Have I understood that
Absolutely.
correctly?
Yes. And just to add to that, the pairing has to happen with a unique identifier. Typically, every electronic device has a unique ID. But even to look forward, look ahead and imagine the worst situation and design your system for the worst situations. If we imagine for a moment that there are multiple uh, control units with the same electronic ID, to eliminate the possibility that other unit with a similar ID would be able to communicate or be recognized by the BU, what we should include in the ID is the date and time of when the handshake took place. So the process I'm proposing is we should pair the control unit and the ballot unit just before the polling starts on the polling day. That pairing should be done using the electronic ID. Let's say now if let's say that ballot unit is registering the control unit, then ballot unit should take the control unit's electronic ID and the date and time of that pairing and store it within itself. At the same time, control unit will also store the same string, that is the control unit ID and the date and time, in itself. The same happens with control unit. So now they know each other, not just by their electronic ID, but by the electronic ID and when they met for the first time. And
Again,
that is impossible to duplicate.
once again, I'll repeat for the audience. Earlier, we were talking about manipulation that can happen through the VVPAT machine. This time, we're talking about manipulation that can happen because the control unit can be separated from the ballot unit, and you can bring a different control unit in for the counting purposes to the one that actually recorded the original votes. Now, again, the system for eliminating this potential problem is a serial cabling, and you're suggesting that the serial cabling should be done, in other words, just before the voting. The pairing should be done just before the voting. And again, the verifying of it should be done just before the counting.
Correct. Because what will happen is before the counting, once we connect them and ask them to recognize each other, if a control unit has been replaced by a duplicate or spurious control unit by antisocial elements, that control unit will not be recognized by the ballot unit because it may have the same electronic serial number, but it will not have the same handshake time, date and time. So that entire string will not match, and therefore we can easily detect a spurious or illegitimate control unit. Therefore, we can eliminate this possibility that a control unit can be replaced just before counting.
Again, the solution is a very simple one. A serial cable connecting the ballot unit to the control unit.
Yes, absolutely.
So once again, we've identified a problem. The problem this time is not to do with the VVPAT. That was the earlier first problem. The problem this time is to do with the control unit and the fact that it can be changed after the voting has done, and therefore different votes are recorded rather than the original votes. But the solution is equally simple. You simply need to connect the control unit and the ballot unit with a serial cable. And as you said, verify the pairing just before the voting and also verify the pairing just before the counting. And that will eliminate any preloaded manufactured votes.
Yes. So pair them before polling, verify the pair before counting.
The third issue that you talked about in your Indie Chat podcast is the need for geolocation tracking with a GPS attachment. Can you start by explaining why is this geolocation tracking necessary?
See, ideally, any sensitive piece that, whether it is to do with defense or any other sensitive system in any part of modern world, they are always geo-tracked. This is just a backgrounder that I'm giving you, whether it is in the US or in Europe or anywhere else, even in China, they geotag the device so that its location is precisely known at every moment. Now, there are different types of geotagging available. The simplest one is that of a GPS transmitter. We in our phones have a GPS receiver, which basically GPS is a system of satellites that are in the sky. They keep on sending signals all the time, and the GPS chip or the device that we have, if it is a receiver, it will receive different signals at different positions from these satellites, and it precisely knows where it is. And that's what we see on our Google Maps every day when we track our location or do whatever. You go using maps, you go somewhere and it shows where you are. GPS transmitters not only identify their own location using these GPS satellites, but they transmit it via either a SIM card or some other transmitting device. The easiest is again a SIM card. So what you have is you have a small circuit which has this GPS receiver and a transmitter inside it. You put a SIM card there, you attach a battery to it, and it starts transmitting its location.
So the reason you believe geo-tracking is necessary is because sometimes EVMs go missing.
Correct.
Geolocation tracking is one way of ensuring that EVMs do not go astray or can be traced and recovered if they fall into the wrong hands. In other words, the way of retrieving the machine if it's passed out of your control.
So there are, yeah, I mean, I was going to come to that. You said it right. The whole reason why this should be done is because once the voting is over, the control units travel hundreds or possibly even thousands of kilometers. Nobody should be, I mean, the people who are in charge should never be unaware of the exact location. Also, not just the people who are in charge, but the opposing parties, maybe the Chief Election Commission, even the judiciary, and at least 3 or 5 internationally reputed civil society organizations should be aware of these locations. They should be able to trace it every moment so that if a control unit gets diverted somewhere, it can be immediately highlighted.
You're saying a very important thing. You're saying that the access to the geo-tracking should be not just available to the Election Commission, who are technically the owners of the EVM machines, but the access to this geo-tracking should also be available, as you said, to the judiciary, as well as to some highly regarded civil society organizations. This is to increase transparency and to increase confidence and to also guarantee that everyone connected with the voting process is confident that it is happening properly and freely and fairly and transparently. And there are no
Absolutely.
missing machines that we don't know about.
Absolutely. 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 Transparency is the key to confidence. It's the key to trust. Today, all this debate has come up because people have a feeling that they don't have the trust in the EVMs. And the reason is because they don't see anything transparently. The
Let me
moment you
ask,
make these things transparent, it becomes trustworthy.
let me ask you this, Mr. Deshpande. Obviously, we don't have specific numbers, but do we fear that sometimes EVMs have gone missing, have gone out of control or the authority of the Election Commission? Do we fear that has happened sometimes?
Uh, so the fear could always be there, but it has to be backed up by data. And I'm sorry, but at this point in time, I do not have data to say that they may have gone missing or anything. But irrespective of whether they have gone missing or not, fixing a GPS on the top of a control unit. See, again, this GPS module doesn't have to be a part of the EVM electronically. It has to be a part of the EVM as a box. So if the control unit is a box, you can just screw this either on the top of the box or put it inside the box. Putting it inside is better because then you can seal that and external interference cannot happen. People should not be able to easily remove it.
But you're saying again a very important thing. It's not electronically fitted, but it's put on top of or inside as a separate unit. It's
Right.
attached, not electronically fitted.
Correct. So that the reason I'm mentioning this specifically is because the strength of Indian EVM is that it is not connected to anything. That makes it unhackable. We should not compromise on that strength. And by not connecting the GPS electronically to this device, we are still maintaining that the control unit remains unconnected, but it becomes traceable. The point here is to bring in traceability and not bring in connectivity.
Absolutely. By not connecting it electronically, but simply by attaching it, you're ensuring that the EVM unit remains unhackable, but it does then become traceable. So if it goes missing, we know where it is, we can locate it, retrieve it.
Yes.
And again, as you're saying, we may not have data to prove and ascertain that EVMs have gone missing, but you're guarding against the possibility that they could go missing.
Correct.
Right? Now, this is very important. We're coming right to the end of this interview. Let me, for the sake of the audience, point out you've identified three specific concerns. First of all, the first concern was that the VVPAT machine can be manipulated. And we decided that the best way of treating that is to make the ballot unit at the center, and the ballot unit will send out its signal simultaneously to both the VVPAT as well as to the control unit. The second problem arises from the fact that the control unit itself can be fiddled with and changed. And after the voting has done, another control unit can be brought in with manufactured preloaded votes. You eliminate that when you pair them through a serial cable, and you again further eliminate it when you do the cabling, the pairing immediately before the voting, and you verify immediately before the counting. Again, the solution is a simple one. And the third thing is to guard against the possibility that EVMs can go missing. And the best way of guarding against that possibility is to attach, not electronically connect, but to attach a geolocation device.
Correct.
Have I summed you up correctly?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then let me end the interview by asking you this. We've discussed three critical measures. They're simple, straightforward, and easy. They can be adopted by the Election Commission without great cost and certainly without great labor. Do you believe this will enhance the accuracy and reliability of our voting system?
Yes, I do. And as I said, this is all the trust and the reliability and the perception is all to do with the transparency that we build. This will make things transparent and robust, both. So that will naturally bring in more reliability. Now, this should be done as soon as we can, even today. For the simple reason is, in my mind, Election Commission has the sole duty of making elections robust, transparent, fair, and make people confident that their votes are accounted for correctly. To that end, these improvements should have been done 20 years ago, because the technology was becoming available. In fact, it had become available. It may not have been as ubiquitous as it is today, but it was available. So 20 years ago itself, we should have incorporated these improvements. Better late than never. There is no time like today or now to start making these improvements and complete them within a month or month and a half. That's it.
There is a third reason why this must happen, and must happen very, very quickly. It's not just going to make the process more transparent, reliable, accurate, and free and fair. But now that we've established that manipulation is possible, if action to guard against that manipulation isn't taken immediately, then the fear that manipulation is happening, or the accusation that manipulation has happened, will continue to be made, and that will undermine our voting. So once you've established, which you have very clearly done, that manipulation is possible, we must act immediately to guard against that manipulation. And that's a fourth reason why these measures must be implemented by the Election Commission. Am I right?
Absolutely, you are.
Mr. Deshpande, I thank you very much indeed for this interview, for so carefully and meticulously explaining both how two types of manipulation can happen, either through the VVPAT or the balloting unit, and also how there is a need for geolocation tracking of the EVM system to ensure that if it does go missing, we can trace and find it. I thank you for having explained this so carefully, so meticulously. I think the audience will be very reassured to know that the manipulation that is possible can be easily, simply, and more importantly, cheaply guarded against. But they will be very concerned also to know that manipulation is possible. That is not something the Election Commission has ever acknowledged before. You've made clear that manipulation is possible. You've shown how it can happen. And if action to guard against it is not taken, the fear that it is happening will continue to remain. That is why action is necessary. I suspect that the Election Commission at some point will get back. Prepare yourself, Mr. Deshpande. They will not be happy with what you have shown today can happen so easily. But in the meantime, the audience will be grateful for opening their eyes. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. And as you said, if the Election Commission does come back, nobody will be happier than me to help them out with this. After all, it's in the interest of Indian democracy that we all are working together.
Thank you very much indeed. And I hope they take note of that offer to work with them, to help them to guard against manipulation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.